matter the soil, no matter the soul, baseball is a game of dreams. Praised at home, Japan's Hideki Irabu earned fame. But as a dreamer, there was the lure of a new world. For baseball is America's game. Its global icon, the Yankees, America's team. A 9-year career met 6 months of controversy, speculation, and hype. Finally, the intense lights of New York and the dream became reality. Welcome to the show, where accomplishment is not determined by desire, but by victories. Tuesday versus the powerful Indians, Irabu struggled. The world champions relied on their bats, carrying the pitcher to his second win. In America, Irabu has earned praise, fame, and a spot in the Yankees rotation. His stream continues tonight. On this, the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week. And this is the view at ancient County Stadium, Milwaukee. It's a hot, humid night. Sunday Night Baseball featuring the world champion Yankees and Hideki Irabu against the Milwaukee Brewers. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, and with Joe Morgan, my partner, and welcome to County Stadium. A lot of excitement tonight as Hideki Irabu, after 2 wins in New York, goes out on the road for the first time. Now, Joe, some people were very impressed. David Cohn and his Yankee teammates certainly were impressed. But David Justice, among those who faced him, said they weren't too impressed with him.
Well, John, I have read all the scouting reports. I've heard what all the players have said about him. I've also watched all the highlights. I reserve my opinion until I watch him in person tonight. I mean, he's had mixed reviews. Some of them have been great, as we see here. He strikes out a lot of people with the splitter and also the fastball. But on Tuesday, he struggled. He gave up a 3-run home run here to Matt Williams, which was one of 3 home runs that they hit. I think we'll have to watch for 2 things tonight. First, he'll have to throw harder than he's thrown in his first 2 starts. He'll have to get that fastball up to around 95 miles an hour. Second, he will have to show me that he can hold the Brewers runners on base, because Phil Garner and his staff, they will run it will, and they are a very aggressive group of ball players.
Yeah, and Fernando Vina is back at the top of the order. He adds a lot of speed to that lineup. Now, you mentioned home runs that he allowed the other day. Well, when you see the Yankees these days, you see home runs from Tino Martinez, the latest in a long line of Yankee sluggers. And right now, he is challenging Ruth and Maris. He's got 33 homers and 91 RBIs.
Well, John, I don't have to reserve my opinion on Tino Martinez. He is a star that is really shining under the spotlight of New York. I mean, a lot of people thought he couldn't play in New York because of his personality, but he is really playing great there. In fact, right now, he has to be the leading candidate for the MVP award in the American League.
He's been something special. He'll go against the left-hander Scott Carl tonight. It's the Yankees with Irabu, the Brewers with Carl coming up. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by Pearl Vision. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl. And by the Delta Faucet Company. Delta, the faucet. He's trying to do it again. And the Yankees start this game 3 games back of Baltimore. The Orioles were beaten today by Chicago. Now the Yankees batting order brought to you by Pepsi. Derek Jeter, the exciting shortstop, leads it off. Pat Kelly at second base. Paul O'Neill, 4 RBIs here yesterday, and he's had a real hot streak going. 20 hits in the last 10 games. Tino Martinez, he's been out all year long. 33 homers, 91 RBIs. It'll be Charlie Hayes at third base. Remember, they're missing Cecil Fielder right now, and the Yankees are said to be in the market for a slugger, preferably a left fielder or even a DH, but a slugger to hit back of Tino Martinez. Mariano Duncan, he's been missing from the lineup most days the last 3 weeks, but he's in there tonight as the DH. Chad Curtis in center field. Mark Whitten is the left fielder. He's a switch hitter. And Joe Girardi is the catcher. So the Yankees have only 2 left-handed hitters in the order today against a man who is real tough on left-handed hitters. That's Scott Carl, although, Joe, he has really struggled for the most part this year.
Well, you're right. Look at the 10 losses, but they feel like this guy is going to be one of the cornerstones that they can build their franchise around. And he's been very successful against Tino Martinez. So Tino Martinez still looking for his first base hit, 0 for 13 against Carl. And you can see he's given up a lot more hits than innings pitched.
Scott Carl from Riverside, California, originally. And he went to high school in Southern California, Carlsbad High School. And then went to the University of Hawaii in Honolulu, Joe.
We should have gone with it.
So we know he's smart.
And let's take a look at the defense. There's Fernando Vina. He's back. He's been gone for 2 months. This is his 3rd game back, and they need his speed in this lineup.
Real exciting player. And he was off to an excellent start for the Brewers this year when he broke his leg on a slide in at second base. And there's Fernando Vina. He says his mom and dad are watching tonight in Sacramento. They came to this country when about the time that he was born from Cuba. And he grew up in Southern California. His family and himself in the offseason all live in the Sacramento area tonight. And he is happy to be back. And he said, Joe, that he seems to be almost at full speed despite that injury. And here's how it happened a couple of months ago. It was terrible.
Well, he told me that he had been sliding late, and obviously he slides real late there. And he says that what he's going to do now is slide a lot sooner than later. But he said that, you know, that was the problem.
So Fernando Vina, he says he learned a valuable lesson. That's a tough way to learn a lesson.
It is a tough way.
Well, here's Derek Jeter against Scott Carl. Carl, back in 1992 when he was with the Rainbow Warriors of the University of Hawaii, and one of his greatest thrills in college, he beat Pepperdine University with a complete game effort in the NCAA Regionals. So here he is, trying to get back to the form which saw him win 13 games last year. He was 13-9 in his first 4 years in the big leagues. First ball swinging Jeter at short. Valentine. And there is one man gone. Derek Jeter, not quite the classic leadoff man style there, swings at the first pitch of the game. And he is promptly retired.
But he's been really swinging the bat well, John. And he's been one of the hottest Yankees going the last few weeks.
Now Pat Kelly. Now Kelly was the guy, it looked like he was going to be anchored at second base for the Yankees for years and years to come. But then he suffered from injury problems. He's had a rotator cuff problem. And now he's just trying to get back, build up his strength. And Chris Chambliss, the hitting instructor of the Yankees, says he's really making great progress. That one is hit hard into left center field. That's into the alleyway. Nobody will get to it. Gerald Williams has to chase it to the wall. Kelly, who has that excellent speed, will stop at second with a stand-up double. Looks to me, Joe, like the book on Carl for the Yankees is get him early in the count.
Well, he's thrown a couple of fastballs, and I think that's why they jumped on him. This was a fastball on the inside part of the plate. You know, left-handers normally like to run the ball away from right-handers. That ball is on the inside half, and he rips it up the gap in left center field. And he starts this inning off with a double.
Now Paul O'Neill. O'Neill 4 for 5 here yesterday with 4 runs batted in. Tied for 5th in the American League with a .335 batting average. And yet, he's been so strong ever since he came to New York that this is just what now you expect from Paul O'Neill.
Well, you know, Paul will look bad for a while. He'll swing bad poorly for a few days. But if you look up the end of the season, he always has great numbers.
Into right center field. That one is into the alleyway. And Carl is in some big trouble early. That one hops over the wall for an automatic double. Coming in to score is Kelly. And Scott Carl has thrown 4 pitches in this game. And the Yankees have swung and put in play 3 of them. The last 2 for doubles, and they lead 1-0.
Well, I think you better try one other pitch, or at least throw a ball on the first pitch, because, I mean, he started every hitter off with a fastball, and that's a fastball on the inside part of the plate, just where Paul O'Neill likes it from a left-hander. And he hits it up the gap in right center field. Both of those fastballs were on the inside half of the plate and up a little bit, and the hitter found the gap.
O'Neill's 31st double of the year. He is tied for the American League lead now in that category. Here is Tino Martinez, and he is putting together one of those dream seasons. And that's too high, ball one. Well, he started him out of the strike zone, Joe.
Well, maybe that's good, because every pitch he's thrown has been a fastball, and that one was up and out of the strike zone.
Tino Martinez, now this is a guy, just don't make a mistake with him. Especially when first base is open. 33 homers, 20 doubles, 91 driven in. Look out, high and tight. He had to lurch back out of the way of that one. 2-0 the count. Only Mark McGwire has hit more home runs in all of Major League Baseball, and he's only hit 1 more. 34, then Martinez, 33. And Martinez leads the American League in RBIs. Only Andres Galarraga of Colorado has more RBIs in the Major League. that is up and 3-0. And I wouldn't be surprised, Joe, until or if and until they get that slugger to hit behind him, if he doesn't start getting pitched around an awful lot here. He's walked 46 times already this year, and that figure could go up dramatically. O'Neill at second. He pours that one in there for a strike. 3-1.
Well, I'm a little surprised that Joe Torre maybe didn't put the red light on. Maybe Tino Martinez just decided he didn't want to swing at that pitch. But I thought 3-0 with the way Carl has taken so much off the last two pitches trying to throw a strike that he let him swing at that.
3-1 now. Runner at second, O'Neill. No, but one out. And off his foot, foul ball, 3-2. Tino Martinez has never had a hit against Scott Carl. 0 for 13 lifetime against him.
Even more reason to let him hit that cripple.
Yeah.
And it actually, he took a lot off. It looked like more of a batting practice fastball. He was just trying to make sure he threw a strike. You know, Carl has thrown a lot of fastballs. He has a good changeup. He also has a curveball, and he sinks the fastball, which we haven't seen much of so far in this first inning.
1-0 Yanks. O'Neill at second, 1 out. 3-2 the count. And that is foul. Scott Carl could be battling his own demons. I mean, 25 years of age and having a hard time getting a win, although he won his last start out. But to give you an idea of how tough it's been, that was his first win in nearly 2 months. It was late May. The last time that he had won a ball game before last Tuesday. He is 3-10 for the year. Charlie Hayes on deck. Center field. Plenty of room for Gerald Williams, the former Yankee. O'Neill tagging at second and bluffing. And Williams has got a very strong arm. Fires all the way through.
Well, that was not a great pitch. It was a fastball in, but he did get it in on Martinez enough. If he throws that pitch with less than 2 strikes, he might have been in trouble. See, everything he's thrown has been in the hitter's wheelhouse. Martinez just misses that pitch. That was the same pitch that O'Neill hit in the gap for a double, the same pitch that we saw Pat Kelly hit for a double in left center field. He's making some mistakes, and he's going to have to curtail those if he's going to stay in this ballgame.
Now Charlie Hayes, 274, 6 homers, 29 driven in. Veteran. Change up too high. I say change up. I think it was supposed to be a curveball, and it didn't do much.
Yeah, well, it was an off-speed pitch of some sort.
Didn't curve, that's for sure.
Yes, they didn't break.
72 miles an hour. 1 ball to no strikes for Charlie Hayes. Got some power. Fastball, and that's outside. 2-0 the count. Mariano Duncan is on deck. He would be next. Back-to-back doubles by Pat Kelly and Paul O'Neill, putting the Yankees ahead. The Yankees go into this game knowing that with a win, they will pull to within 2.5 of first-place Baltimore, a club that they once trailed by 9.5. That's a changeup going outside. It is 3-0. And he threw that. That's a real slow changeup.
Well, he's got pretty good motion with that changeup, John. He doesn't slow his motion down. He keeps basically the same arm speed, but you'd like to have a little more pop on your fastball and maybe have that changeup a few miles an hour faster.
That's a strike. 3-1.
If you throw the changeup too slow, the hitter can step out on his front foot and still regather his momentum and still hit that ball. So you'd like to have the changeup just a few miles an hour slower than your fastball. You don't want something like 80 and then 70.
3-1 to Charlie Hayes. O'Neill at second, ready to run anything here. That is strike 2. Picking up the outside edge at the knees. Larry McCoy, the veteran umpire, back of the plate. And there is Mariano Duncan, who would be next.
John, you can see when he gets the fastball down, it does sink and it moves away from the hitter. Whereas the other fastballs were all straight, the last 2 have been sinking away from Charlie Hayes.
He lunges for one and pops it up. Another off-speed pitch, and he really fooled Charlie Hayes on that one.
But it was so slow that Charlie could almost recheck and get a piece of it. You want it, you know, when you throw the changeup like Greg Maddux, that's a straight change. And the other pitchers, you want him to put that ball in play, pop it up, hit a little weak ground ball someplace. But it was so slow that he was able to still foul it off.
3-2. That's a base hit into center field. Here comes O'Neill. Gerald Williams has that strong arm, but the throw is way offline. O'Neill scores. Hayes holds it first with a single, and the Yanks lead is now 2-0. Hayes' 30th RBI of the year.
That's good hitting there by Hayes, because he made some good pitches to Hayes in that at-bat after he fell behind. But after he threw him a changeup, he comes with the fastball, and Hayes is able to line it right back through the middle. I think as a hitter, you always have to look for the fastball and try to adjust anything else that they throw. Because if he's looking for a changeup and he throws him the fastball there, he would have been right by him.
So now, Mariano Duncan. And I want to joke you, Scott Carl, you're 3-10. Is it hard to keep negative thoughts out of your head when you've had so much failure in the season up till now, and now here you are in trouble again?
Well, a good athlete, a good competitor, every time he goes to the mound, he thinks this is the start of a long winning streak. Even as a hitter, when you're struggling, you say, this at-bat will get me started so that I can, you know, have a good stretch here. And I think Carl feels that way. And if he can get out of the first inning, who knows?
2 runs in, Hayes at first. Duncan to the right side is Fernando Vina. And that ends the inning. So the Yankees, who've been scoring a lot of runs for Irabu, have put him ahead before he takes them out. Cirillo, who was on the All-Star team, at third base. Dave Nelson will be at first base hitting cleanup. Jeremy Burnett, who's their leading home run man, 14 homers in right field. Jose Valentin is at short. Gerald Williams, the former Yankee, in center. Mark Newfield is the DH. And Mike Matheny is the catcher, hitting ninth. And on the mound for the Yankees, 27-year-old right-hander Hideki Irabu. And now he pitches out of New York for the first time. His first start 10 days ago, 9 strikeouts, 6 2/3 innings, allowing 2 runs and 5 hits. He got up to a great start and really won over his teammates in that one, because he struck out 4 of the first 6 men he faced, retiring the side in order in the first 2 innings despite all of the hoopla. Here is Vina to start it off. Keep an eye on that radar gun reading. And a changeup, 86 miles an hour. I'm saying a changeup.
Well, I was going to say, John, it didn't look like a changeup. It just looked like a mediocre fastball. It was like he was trying to throw a strike with it. That's the changeup there. See, there is the difference. You see, that was 80 miles an hour. The other one was 86.
Fernando Vina just getting back this weekend, and they're glad to have him back here in Milwaukee. Get sort of a cult following here. 313 batting average for the year. 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and Pat Kelly takes care of Vina, and there is 1 away.
One other thing to notice with Irabu is that he works from the first base side of the rubber, and he steps toward third a little bit. He kind of throws across his body a little bit, which will help him to hide. Watch, he steps to his right there, which will help him to hide the ball a little bit from the hitter. See, right there, he hides it a little bit more than normal. With his motion, you'd think you'd be able to pick the ball up very quickly, but he does hide it a little bit by throwing a little bit across his body.
Now Jeff Houston, veteran and usually a middle infielder, but playing in left field for the Brewers, who have some injury problems. It's tough to overcome. The 90-mile-an-hour fastball. 1 ball and no strikes to Houston.
One of the things he's going to try to do tonight also, John, is throw a cut fastball, which I think that was. He wants to throw a few cutters.
2-0.
One thing to remember, he didn't have any spring training. I think that's the biggest deterrent to us seeing what Irabu will eventually be. He did not have the spring training that all the other pitchers had.
Hit hard, base hit, right center by Houston. O'Neill has got a great arm, and Houston will hold with a single.
Well, let's take a look at the Yankees defense. We saw Paul O'Neill cut in front of Curtis there to get that ball. Curtis is starting in center field. Bernie Williams on the disabled list. And you see he's starting his 21st game in center field for the Yankees. That's because Bernie has been on and off the disabled list the past couple of months.
Chad Curtis, been around a long while. Used to be the regular everyday center fielder for the Angels for many years. With Detroit for a time, and then Cleveland. Now Jeff Cirillo. And he is, since going to the All-Star game, been mired in a slump. His average was up around 300. Now it's 284. 7 home runs and 54 runs driven in. 27 doubles. And that is ball 1.
Well, you see with his motion, John, he has a slow high leg kick with his left leg, and that does not allow him to hold runners close at first base. We'll see if the Brewers start running right away or if they wait a while to feel like they've got his motion down.
Houston runs pretty well. Houston is back to first. 1 ball to no strikes. The count to Jeff Cirillo. And Phil Garner does like to manage very aggressively, but the Brewers don't really have the kind of speed that they used to have, especially with Vina having been out. They've stolen only 52 bases all year. Right field, O'Neill gets there, and that's the out on Cirillo. 2 men down. Houston back to first, and now Dave Nilsson will come up. One of the Brewers' power threats.
Well, let's take a look at this pitch here. You see how he hides the ball a little bit from you, not a lot. That's the fastball, just a straight fastball, and Cirillo hits it to right field.
Irabu looking into that setting sun right now, as the sun can be seen between the rooftop and then the top of the upper deck out there. You can get a shot. At times it can affect the left fielder and the shortstop as well. Go to first, and Houston is back. And so look for out at left field. Houston himself, who is in left field for the Brewers tonight, said it can be a problem out there for the first 2 or 3 innings. On a line drive hit in that direction. Dave Nilsson, big, strong Australian. He takes low for ball 1. He's never faced Irabu, but a couple of years ago, Australia put together sort of an all-star team of the best Australian ball players for a tournament, and they went to Japan. He faced a couple of Japanese teams then. And he says he faced some pitchers who had motions very similar to that of Irabu. Right field, and that is right to Paul O'Neill. So that's the inning. 1 hit, 1 left. Yanks lead 2-0 as we go to the second from Milwaukee. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Milwaukee, and there's the aerial view of venerable County Stadium, and out in center field the ground has been broken, and the construction has begun on the new ballpark, Miller Field, which is scheduled to open for opening day in the year 2000. And there's an artist's rendering of what it will look like, and it will be another one of these ballparks, Joe, with a retractable dome, and in sections in a sort of a different style of the retractable dome in Toronto, but looks like it will be quite a place. Scheduled to open in the year 2000, and they have a board featuring the countdown before April the 1st of the year 2000. And I'm assuming that they're hoping that the schedule makers will have their home opener on April the 1st of that year. Here is Chad Curtis. The Yankees come up in the second inning, leading 2-0 against Scott Carl. And that is strike 1.
Well, Bud Selig is acting commissioner, isn't he? Surely he can get the schedule changed so that his first game is here.
If he doesn't have any influence over the schedule makers, who does? Mark Whitten is on deck. And that fastball is in there for a called strike. 0-2 the count to Curtis. Now, the Yankees' Bernie Williams, who was such an incredible star in the postseason last year to help propel the Yankees into the World Series in the first place. I mean, he really came through big time against Texas and Baltimore in the postseason. Up and in for a ball. And he's out with a strained hamstring right now, a pulled hamstring. Although I talked to Bernie before the game tonight, Joe, he's hopeful in about a week he'll be back.
Well, it's the second time he's had that injury. Came back and played 10 days and then hurt it again.
Curtis pops it up. Dave Nilsson in foul territory. And that is out number 1. Now, some of the folks out in the bleachers enjoying the ball game and their favorite beverage here in Brewtown. Yeah. Wave and shout like a maniac if you love Joe Morgan. Yeah, that's what we told him. That's what the cameraman told him when he aimed the camera at him. They love you, baby. One down. Here's Mark Whitten. Switch hitter batting right-handed. And that is in there for a called strike. Whitten, in 197 at-bats with only 5 home runs. The Yanks were hoping for a little more power from him. One of the reasons that they're out there. Bob Watson, general manager, looking to make a trade. Although the New York Times had an item today saying that Watson felt like the chances of making a deal for a significant power hitter are not good at this point. That's a called strike. There have been names like Jose Canseco mentioned. And, of course, they actually made a trade for Greg Vaughn of the San Diego Padres, the former Brewer, only to rescind the trade a little bit later. And no swing ruled by Jim Evans, the first base umpire. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Whitten. Joe Torre, I asked him if he was having fun. And he says he's having fun now, but he wasn't earlier this year.
That's understandable.
And he said he didn't even realize it. Broken back. Cirillo to Nilsson, and Whitten is retired at number 2. He said he thinks it was because, having won the title last year, he wanted to give the impression of somebody who was working hard to try and do it again. And he wanted people thinking that, you know, now he was just coasting because he'd won it and it didn't matter anymore. And then one day he was having lunch or dinner with his wife, and she said, "Who are you? I don't even know you anymore. You've changed so much." And she pointed out the differences to him, and then he realized that she was right. And he says with her help and her insight, he's been able to kind of change his outlook back to where he was last year. And I think that was one of the things that, as we watched Joe Girardi for the count of 2-0, that Joe Torre became known for last year, that he was the perfect man for the job in the tinderbox that sometimes is Yankee Stadium. And he was relaxed. He kept his team relaxed and focused. That's a strike, 2-1. But as you know, Joe, I mean, these last 15, 20 years especially, when a team wins a World Series, it is so difficult to repeat because everything seems to change. And that's ball 3. The expectations change.
Yeah, it's difficult for a lot of the players want more money, and if they don't get it, it changes their attitude. And then you trade some players, you make some changes, and you have a different ball club.
Well, that's a 2-out walk to Joe Girardi. Now here's an update on another ball game from Bill Pito.
All right, John, MCI takes us to Texas, the Rangers and Tigers. Matt Whiteside is first. And Hamlin starts for Texas. Top of the second, Detroit's Bob Hamlin drives in Tony Clark, and right now Detroit leads it 2-0 in the second. Now MCI takes us to Florida. The Padres and Marlins. This game's been slowed by a rain delay, but here in the top of the 8th, Silvio Veras to center. Steve Finley will tag and score. The Pods 7-3 in the last 10. Lead it 3-0 in the 8th, John.
All right, the Padres, the defending champions of the National League West. They've been playing a pretty strong ball here of late after a real bad start. There's a strike to Derek Jeter, and it is 0-1. 2-0 the score here. The Yanks leading the Brewers. Jeter swung at the first pitch he saw and bounced it to the shortstop. Derek Jeter, .292 average for the year. Very close friends with another outstanding young shortstop, Alex Rodriguez. And I asked him, he'd spoken to A-Rod lately. He says, oh, they speak very often on the telephone, and he's looking forward to seeing them next weekend. The Mariners go to Yankee Stadium for a weekend series, meaning Griffey and all those great stars of the Mariners go to Yankee Stadium, which is always exciting. Runner go. Matheny's throw. Right there. Man, he was out by plenty. Girardi cut down. Jeter will lead off the next inning for the Yanks. 2-0 New York. Jeremy Burnett's coming up. There's big fans there, too.
Okay.
That's a big curveball. That's the pitch they said he had not been featuring much in his first 2 starts. This one to Jeremy Burnett, having a fine year for the Brewers. Got 14 home runs for the season. .276 average. 2-0. The Yanks are leading. Now, I was going to try to make you believe that I read Japanese, but it's just not true.
Well, I knew one guy there liked him because it said Irabu. I don't know what all those other 6 signs were saying.
1 ball, 1 strike. That's a liner to right field, but right there, Paul O'Neill. The 3rd ball in a row hit to O'Neill.
John, you know, invariably there are comparisons going to be made between Nomo and Irabu. Let's take a look at their motion. I think you'll see from Nomo's motion, he hides the ball better from the hitter. He hides it longer. He turns his back here. It's tougher to pick the ball up from him than it is Irabu. See, everything's pretty much in front of you when Irabu throws. And I'll tell you what that really means. You see, you can pick the ball pretty quickly from him. What that really means is that he has less margin for error than Nomo. Nomo, when he first came, people were having trouble with his windup and his delivery, so he could get away with more mistakes.
Jose Valentin, the hitter, by the way.
But with Irabu, he has to have good stuff when he goes out there because they're going to pick up the ball. But if you look at Nomo, the first year they had trouble picking up his motion. He got away with a lot of mistakes. The second year they adjusted a little better.
That's foul.
And he got away with fewer mistakes. And now this year they've even adjusted more. And if you take a look, his first year Nomo was 13-6 with a 2.54 earned run average. His second year he was 16-11 with a 3.19 earned run average. And in 1997 so far, he's 9-8 with a 3.83. That tells you that the hitters have adjusted to his motion. And the days that he has good stuff, he's able to win. But when he doesn't get away with mistakes like he did the first year. And I think with Irabu, he doesn't have that luxury. And again, I think the problem with him is going to be his lack of spring training.
2-2 the count to Valentin. Also has some power. That fastball is too high. Well, tonight's game, we've got our usual ESPN audience and also worldwide interest in this ball game. It is being televised live back in Japan, not only on home television there, but on some giant screens in the middle of many urban areas. The NH2 network you saw there, the commentators. That's ball 4 to Valentin. 1 out, 1 on, and Gerald Williams is coming up. Also, Dave Nelson of the Brewers told me that his family told him it's also being televised back in Milwaukee, in Australia. So, and he also said that where he lives in Australia, Brisbane, is basically the same time zone as Tokyo and most of Japan. They're about 14 hours ahead of the time in New York. So be closing in on 11 o'clock tomorrow morning in Japan and in Australia. And back to the bag is Valentin. So for our viewers there, although probably in Japan they're not really listening to us, Joe, but I'm going to pretend that they are. Konnichiwa. And in Australia, good day. And in Texas, hi, y'all. And if you know any other, and Hawaii, Joe, aloha. Gerald Williams, center field, Chad Curtis. And that is out number 2. John, back to first.
John, I've been watching Jim Gantner. He's the first base coach of the Brewers. And his right hand there, you can see that stopwatch. What he's doing is he's timing Irabu's move to first base and also timing his delivery time to the plate, so that they will know how quickly he throws to first base and how quickly he gets the ball to the plate, which will allow them to formulate a running plan against a guy like this. But if you just look at him, you can tell, as far as I'm concerned, that he has a slow delivery to the plate.
Valentin has some pretty good speed. He has 9 steals for the year. Mark Newfield, the hitter. We were hoping that he would be a primary source of power this year, but he's got a rotator cuff problem. He's only able to DH. And even then, he doesn't have the same pop with that rotator cuff problem that he had before. Newfield, who came here last year as part of the trade that sent Greg Vaughn to the San Diego Padres. And he did real well the last part of the season here in Milwaukee a year ago, with only 17 RBIs and only 1 home run this year in 147 at-bats. Newfield had 7 homers and 31 RBIs and a 3.07 average in only 179 at-bats with the Brewers last year. A strike on the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike, 2-0. Yanks ahead. Last of the second inning from County Stadium. Well, with Irabu also, Joe, the reason I think I'm so interested in seeing it and hearing your evaluation of him, as you see Gantner, Gumby, longtime second baseman here for the Brewers. And there goes the runner. Right field, O'Neill. Well, O'Neill has caught 4 fly balls in this game in 2 innings. 1 man left. Top of the order, Jeter, Kelly, and O'Neill for the Yanks. 2-0 New York. Wednesday night, a big doubleheader on ESPN. Ken Griffey Jr. and the slugging Mariners against the slugging Cleveland Indians. From the Jake, Griffey, 30 homers for the year for Seattle. And Sandy Alomar, the All-Star Game hero. Jim Thome, Dave Justice, Matt Williams. Then the second half at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Todd Hundley and the Mets. Mike Piazza and the Dodgers. The Mets have been one of the great stories in the league this year. Brett Butler still in there, making it happen. It's the big doubleheader. The Mariners and the Indians at 7:30 Eastern. The Mets and the Dodgers following the Wednesday night baseball doubleheader. And there's the panoramic view of County Stadium. Pretty good crowd here tonight. Much larger than they ordinarily would expect on a Sunday night. At this ballpark, they have not been drawing well here on most nights, Sunday or otherwise. An average attendance of only about 17,000 per game. So, very good crowd to see Hideki Irabu and the Yankees here tonight. And, of course, the Yankees, Joe, still one of the great draws in baseball. They had 38,000 here last night for the Yanks and Brewers.
Yankees average over 30,000 customers a game while they're on the road.
Scott Carl gave up 2 quick runs in the first inning. Still 2-0 for the Yankees as Derek Jeter will try it again. He was at the plate when Girardi had thrown out, trying to steal in the second. And Jeter doesn't get it.
This looks like it's a high fastball, and Jeter goes up and out of the strike zone trying to catch up with it. And he doesn't get a piece of it.
1 ball, 1 strike. Jeter had to lurch back out of harm's way on that one. Pat Kelly on deck, and then Paul O'Neill is due up 3rd in the inning. Jeter got about the same numbers right now that he had this time last year. He smashes one to center field, a base hit. Hit number 4 for New York.
Second half of last year, I mean, he was just unbelievable, especially for a rookie in a pennant race. I mean, he was just dynamite down the stretch for the Yankees.
He finished the year hitting .314, but in the second half, he hit .350. That's what you're talking about, Joe. And it seemed like it wasn't just that he was getting lots of hits. He was getting big hits. Derek Jeter, he also leads the Yankees in stolen bases with 13, although he's been caught 7 times. Kelly, the hitter, and that's back out of play. Jeter says his close friend Alex Rodriguez, when the Mariners come to New York next weekend, next Friday will be Alex's birthday. They might even get together after a game. But it's kind of interesting that the 2 premier young shortstops in the game today, both coming along, having big years early on, and they're such close friends off the field. They see a lot of each other in the offseason, work out together. 0-2 the count. And, of course, there's Jeter in New York, the big city, Yankee Stadium, and Alex Rodriguez out there in Seattle. But I tell you what, Seattle has become one of the baseball capitals, hasn't it? Tremendous interest in the Mariners out there. 1-2 the count to Kelly. Paul O'Neill on deck after Kelly. Yankee power comes up. O'Neill, Tino Martinez. The Yankees they're missing Bernie Williams. They're missing Cecil Fielder, who may or may not come back in September. Torrey says he's hopeful maybe by mid-September he'll be back. Darryl Strawberry missed virtually the whole season, having knee surgery. So the Yanks would like to go find some more power. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Meanwhile, they're still making up ground in Baltimore. The Orioles have really struggled. What is it? The Orioles have lost 10 of their last 13 games. They're having a hard time scoring. And apparently the frustration is building. Cal Ripken, of all people, got ejected from the game today after 1 at bat. Clark tossed him in the second inning. Strike 3 call on the outside. 1 away.
Well, that was a changeup that he threw, and I guess it caught the outside edge. It's a changeup, and it just catches the outside corner.
Well, Kelly didn't seem to be convinced.
No, he didn't think so. You can see that that's not a curveball, although it, the break seemed like it could have been a curveball. It's a straight changeup. It doesn't stay straight, of course, but it's a changeup.
One down. Here is Paul O'Neill. O'Neill kind of crossed up the lefty. Lefties usually don't hit well against Carl, but O'Neill hit a double against him in the first. Well, that was called a ball.
Well, O'Neill jumped on the first ball fastball that he saw, and it was up a little bit in the zone and on the inner half of the plate.
Paul O'Neill, he's hitting .337 for the year now. One out, Jeter at first. Carl, big leg kick and a throw to first. Jeter is back. Nilsson on the bag with him. Left-handed hitters against Scott Carl this year, 10 hits in 60 at-bats, a 167 average, including the O'Neill double in the first inning tonight. That being the case, sounds to me, Joe, I mean, this is, for Scott Carl, his 19th start of the year. There's only been 60 at-bats by lefties against him. It must be that most teams just get all their lefties out of there when he's on the mound. Righties have hit him pretty well. Real well. Extraordinarily well. 313. Fernando Vina, the second one. Down to the first. Double play. 2-0 for the Yankees. Matheny, Vina, and then Houston coming up when we get back. Milwaukee 2-0 Yanks. We go to the last of the third. And circling overhead here at County Stadium is the Miller Brewing Eagle. The Eagle is a unique airplane the folks at Miller designed to provide aerial views on sports television, and we're glad to have them with us. They're doing it awfully well, I thought. From above the side of the new Miller Park that will open in the year 2000, just out beyond center field of County Stadium. Hideki Irabu against Mike Matheny. Too low with a fastball. So far, we've not seen any kind of an exploding fastball from Irabu, not the extreme power that we were told he possessed. It's hit hard. Base hit, left center field. Irabu coming from Japan. Certainly a lot of cultural differences between he and his teammates. We asked Joe Girardi, though, how he's fitting in.
He fits in great. We've had a good time with him. They're playing games with him on the bench, and, he fits right in. We all wish we could communicate with him a little bit more, but we're working at it, and kids find a way to do it, so there's no reason as adults we can't find a way to communicate until either we all understand Japanese or he understands English.
I don't know. Which will come first, Joel?
Well, I tell you, I was sitting on the bench when he came out today, and all the players spoke to him. They all looked like they had a big laugh together, and they all seemed to like him.
Fernando Vina, a strike.
Well, the one thing I'm noticing so far, with Irabu is that he's throwing a couple of different fastballs. He threw a sinker the first pitch to Matheny, and then he threw a cut fastball, which he hit for a base hit. My point is, he is moving the ball around. He knows what he's doing out there on the mound. He knows how to pitch. That's the one thing that I see.
Well, there's the splitter.
Well, he changes speeds well. He does a lot of things very good. But I don't see, as you just mentioned, the exploding fastball, the overpowering riding fastball, the one that's up in the strike zone. And there's a splitter that will make his fastball that much better. Because if they start looking for the splitter, obviously that means the fastball will look like it gets there a little quicker.
That's down the right field line. Base hit into the corner. O'Neill digs it out. Matheny will be held at third. Vina with a stand-up double. Nobody out, and the Brewers are in business.
Well, it looked like this pitch was some kind of a off-speed pitch. I don't know if it was a splitter. It was not the good fastball. Yeah, it's the splitter. See, and it actually moved pretty good. That's just good hitting there by Vina. That ball moved away from him and down, but Vina just made a good effort, went out there and got it and pulled it into the corner. That was not a bad pitch by Irabu. So you have to give the hitter credit there. See Joe Torre motioning to the infielders to be alive that he may drag the ball. Jeff Houston, that is. He may drag it to the right side.
Pretty good butter. The infield laying back with nobody out. Runners at second and third. First ball swinging. Charlie Hayes. One away. In fair territory, according to Larry McCoy, is where he caught it.
And see, that's what I'm talking about, knowing how to pitch. That looked like it was a cut fastball in on the hands because, of course, if you're Houston up there, you want a fastball in that you can pull so you can move the runners along. But this is a cut fastball. See it move in on him, and it jams him right in on this thing on the hands. He can't do anything but pop it up. See the pitch? In on him. Good cut fastball there from Irabu. That's what I'm saying. He knows how to pitch. And I can see that when he gets a little better fastball, that he can dominate a hitter. But he does not have that overpowering fastball right now. And again, I think that's because he did not have a full spring training like the other pitchers, and maybe he's still working his way into shape. This is basically spring training for him.
Jeff Cirillo, the hitter, and you can see the struggles he's had since the All-Star game. And I think you're making a very good point, Joe, because obviously there was the hype, I mean, from his agent and everything you heard about him. It sounded like he was Superman. Cirillo trying to deliver here, and he's been the big man in spots like this for the Brewers the last couple of years. And now Girardi will go out and attempt to communicate with Irabu.
He may be Superman, John. He just hasn't found a telephone booth yet to change, you know. I mean, it takes a while for him to, you know, get ready.
Matheny at third base and Vina at second base. A base hit could tie this game. Yanks lead 2-0. And Cirillo has been one of the best hitters in the American League with men in scoring position again this year. Tries to curve and misses inside with it. 1 ball and no strikes.
That was interesting right there, John. That's why Girardi went out to talk to him. Girardi wanted to call the curveball. He didn't want to throw the curveball. He wanted to go with something else. So Girardi went out and talked to him, and I think he wanted to tell, hey, we want you to use all your pitches, not just the fastball and the splitter.
There's the splitter, and he fooled Cirillo. He chased it in the dirt. 1 ball, 1 strike.
And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think you could have a better catcher for Irabu to work with than Girardi. I mean, Girardi has really helped this Yankee staff a lot last year, and he knows how to get a pitcher to work. He knows what he's doing behind the plate, and he calls an excellent game.
Dave Nilsson on deck. Brewers trying to get back into it, down 2-0. Well, there's another split. 1 and 2. All right, so if you've made him look bad on 2 straight splitters, do you go with it again?
Well, sometimes when you're a power pitcher and you get in trouble, you just want to throw it hard, and I think that's what Girardi makes him do here. He threw him a slow curveball, and then he's come back with 2 splitters. I think this is a situation, whether, you know, he wants to or not, he could waste the fastball, but I think he wants to get him out with something off speed. I think that's exactly what Girardi wants.
And Cirillo had asked for time, and he backs away, and you saw Irabu back off the slam. Jeff Cirillo enduring a tough slump right now. 5 for his last 36. Get an RBI here with an infield out, a fly ball. A base hit to the outfield would probably tie it. Bill Garner's team has not been getting many clutch hits of late. Well, there's another splitter, and he got a piece of this one. I don't know, Joe. It seemed like 2 in a row you fooled him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, 3 times? I don't know.
Well, but I think what he tried to do was throw a better one. By that, I mean throw it and make sure it went out of, you know, dropped out of the strike zone. Maybe he would chase it. But see, I mean, this is the difference. This shows you that he is not a real power pitcher, because with 1 ball, 2 strikes, you just turn that good fastball loose upstairs if you were overpowering with the fastball. Like that.
Yeah.
But he did get a piece of it. Now, that tells you something there also. He got a piece of that fastball after looking at 3, 4 straight off-speed pitches. He's able to get a piece of this fastball that's up and out of the strike zone. That's a perfect pitch. It could have been just a hair higher, I guess, but again, I think he needs to, if he's going to dominate a hitter, he needs to have, maybe another foot on that fastball.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Yeah, it's the only fastball that he's thrown to Cirillo in this whole at-bat. Curveball and 3 splitters before that. 2 men on. Up the middle, and he is delivered. Base hit. Matheny and Vina score, and it's 2-2. The Brewer All-Star, Jeff Cirillo, has delivered.
Well, Rabo is really upset with himself, and he should be, because he hung the pitch. This is the reason, and you see he's very upset with himself. He figures I can't make a mistake like that in this situation. Now, watch where this pitch is. Now, watch this as a splitter that it hangs up there. See, it stays up, and he pushes it back through the middle. Now, watch the Rabu. I mean, he wants to slam his glove down right there. He doesn't, but he knows that he made a mistake, and he had 2 strikes, and he says, man, I can't make those kind of mistakes. And you can't make those kind of mistakes, with good hitters.
So Jeff Cirillo, as he's done these last 2 seasons, delivers with men in scoring position. Now Dave Nelson takes high for ball 1. There's another guy. If you make a mistake with him, he can wallop it. The pride of Brisbane, Australia. Dave Nelson facing Hideki Irabu from Chiba, Japan. In a foul here in the great American game of baseball in America's heartland. 1 ball, 1 strike. And it's nice to see, Joe, that
I tell you, he's
baseball,
upset.
he's still
real upset, yeah.
It's nice to see baseball mining the talent on a worldwide basis as baseball becomes more and more of a worldwide sport. Well, Irabu, they say that's one of the big differences between he and Nomo. I mean, they have a completely different emotional makeup. I mean, he's very demonstrative, very emotional on the mound.
Well, the question is, how does he rebound from that? Sometimes anger will fuel you, to a better effort. Sometimes it goes just the opposite. You get too angry and you overthrow, or you're so upset with yourself you're still thinking about the pitch before. And he's falling behind here, 2 balls and 1 strike.
Nelson flying out to right his first time. So the count now 2 balls and 2 strikes.
There you see what his average fastball has been tonight, and the 93-mile-an-hour has been the fastest one that he has thrown. And there's one other point to make here. Speed is not always the most important thing. How much movement is on that fastball is the real clue to how good a pitcher he's going to be.
Cirillo back to the bag at first. Almost like he was trying to draw a throw there. Cirillo has 3 steals for the year, so he does not often run. A high fastball is lifted, found, back out of play. 2-2 the count to Dave Nelson. Jeremy Burnett is on deck. Only 1 man out, 2 runs in. It's a 2-2 tie in the 3rd inning. But, John, the topic of how hard he throws is a tendency to think, well, maybe all this stuff that he threw 99 miles an hour, 97, was just about a height. But, on the other hand, players like Pete Incaviglia, who played in Japan and who faced him over there, Bobby Valentine, manager of the Mets, who managed him, have said that was legitimate. They saw him do it. That one is into deep right. O'Neill all the way back to the wall. Out of here.
John, I think this is where the communication gap really shows itself. After he gave up the base hit that drove into 2 runs by Cirillo, he was so upset with himself, but Girardi didn't know how or couldn't calm him down by telling him to concentrate on the next hitter. So what does he do? He falls behind, as I mentioned, then he makes another mistake.
Here's Jeremy Burnett, called a strike.
But, you know, if you're Girardi and you see that he's still upset with himself, as I mentioned a couple times, he's slamming down the rosin back. Normally you'd go out and talk to him and try to calm him down before he makes another pitch. But I think that's the communication gap that they have, that, you know, Girardi just can't do some of the things that he would like to do. And that's why it will be difficult. You know, it is difficult for him to adjust to what's going on here in the major leagues, because there are certain things you have to learn only by pitching in the major leagues.
That fastball called the ball.
But if no one can point those things out to you, really, then you do not learn.
Well, Dave Nelson, a great moment for him. The game being televised back in his home in Brisbane, Australia. Burnett's off the end of the bat. O'Neill comes in for it. And that is out number 2.
John, I want to make one other point. You talked about Valentine, you talked about Incavillo and those guys seeing Irabu in Japan. And the point is, they're comparing him to other Japanese pitchers that they're seeing there at the same time. And maybe he is head and shoulders above those guys in velocity. And so, you know, but there is a difference, you know, in pitching in the major league. And again, I really believe that watching him, he knows how to pitch, and he's going to be a good pitcher. I just think that it's going to take him a little longer than they realize, and that is he's going to have more time for spring training is concerned.
Valentine chases a high hard one, and it's 0-2. Valentine walked his first time. 4 runs in for Milwaukee, 4-2. I mean, in Japan, they have radar guns, right?
They're probably more accurate than ours.
0-2 the count.
Yeah, but I'm not even concerned with how hard he throws. I'm talking about the movement on the fastball. And you can tell when a guy throws 4 breaking balls and then throws a fastball, usually the hitter will be late. And that's basically what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, and you're exactly right. But on the other hand, even if you throw it straight, if you can throw one 99 miles an hour, that's got its own merits.
Well, I tell you something I learned from Eddie Matthews, who played here in Milwaukee years ago. He said, I can hit a speeding bullet if it stays straight. I just start my swing a little sooner.
3-2 the count. Popped up. Shallow center. Kennedy with Curtis behind him, and Curtis. But 4 runs for the Brewers. The big blow, a 2-run shot by Dave Nilsson. Tino Martinez is coming up. Milwaukee Ball Club's Joe Girardi, the catcher, sitting alongside the former catcher, who was a former catcher here in Milwaukee. When he started his career, Joe Torre with the Milwaukee Braves. And, of course, the Yankees actually played 2 different World Series in this ballpark back in the 50s, 1957 and 58. The Brewers did not exist at that time. Milwaukee Braves.
And you're watching Girardi, you see him, he was watching every move that Irabu made, and I think that's because he's still trying to see if he's finally calmed down, so when he goes back out there.
Well, see, Brewer fans are getting cocky now, Joe. They've got 4 runs on the board. They're breaking out their dress hats. Wonder what those guys are doing this morning. You were out at some pond somewhere. Just a guess. But their tackle is Tino Martinez, who flied out to center his first time. Scott Carl's got a lead with which to work now. A little bit low. 1 ball, 1 strike. Again, Tino having this great year, but he's never had a hit against Carl. And, of course, the Cheeseheads. The Dairy State.
And someone may wonder, well, why would he be 0 for 13 against a guy who gives up a lot of base hits and so forth? Well, part of the reason is sometimes as a hitter, you do not pick the ball up as quickly as you'd like from a pitcher. And that last pitch was an example. He was a little late on a pitch that he normally hits well. And the same thing the first inning, John, on the ball that he hit the fly ball at center field. He had a good pitch to hit, but it looked like the ball got on him a little bit. And a lot of times the pitcher's motion, you just can't pick the ball up. And then another pitcher, another left-handed pitcher, you see the ball well. So it's all about being able to pick the ball up quickly enough.
Right to Vigna. Fernando throws out Tino Martinez, 1 away.
And let's take a look at this pitch, and I think you'll see that this is another fastball in, and he's keeping a diet of fastballs in on Martinez, and he hasn't been able to get around on him, and that tells me that he's not picking up the ball quick enough, you know, or as quick as he would like, because he's hitting the ball on the plate instead of just a few inches out in front of the plate. But, you know, some pitchers you hit great, others you don't hit so well, and that's the reason. You see it well on some and not so good off others.
On the changeup, Charlie Hayes way out in front of it. 0-1 the count, hit it well, hit home run distance on it, but foul. Charlie Hayes singled home the Yankees' second run. They scored 2 in the first. But now the Brewers lead 4-2 as we play the fourth. One thing with this Yankee lineup tonight, I mean, there's not much power in this lineup. I mean, Charlie Hayes can provide some power, but he hasn't provided that much this year. Mark Witt and Chad Curtis have little power. Here's Andy Pettit, the heroes of the Yanks a year ago. Has a chance, but at the wall. Burnett makes the catch. 2 down, and now let's get an update from Bill Pito.
All right, John, San Diego with Florida. Florida down 3-0. Bottom 9, man on for Kurt Abbott. Way back in center, Steve Finley goes back to the track, makes the grab. Arias has to go back to first. Pods win at 3-zip. They're 8-3 in the last 11. Finley says, you know, I caught that. Finley went 0 for 4. He's now at 388.
Tony Gwynn. What happened to Tony? He's in a slump, Joe.
Yeah, he went 0 for 3 yesterday.
Yeah, he's only at 388. Terrible. Here's Mariano Duncan. Well, that Florida pitching staff can put you into a slump. Gerald Williams makes the catch. 3 up and 3 down. Gerald Williams is coming up. 4-2, Milwaukee. Beautiful twilight sky here in Wisconsin. We're in Milwaukee. The Sunday night baseball game of the week. Next Sunday will be not far from here. We'll be over in Chicago at the new Comiskey Park to look at Frank Thomas and Albert Bell and the Chicago White Sox. They take on Juan Gonzalez, Will Clark, and the Texas Rangers next Sunday night. We hope you'll join us. Here is Gerald Williams, and there is ball 1 from Irabu. Williams, Newfield, and Matheny, the last third of Bill Garner's batting order coming up here. Williams flied out to center his first time. Derek Jeter, nice play against a very fast runner.
That was a big league play by a shortstop. I mean, he charged the ball, got rid of it quickly. But what I really liked, he grabbed it with his glove and his hand already there. He didn't try to barehand it. He makes the see how quick and you can get rid of the ball just as quickly if you have your glove there at the same time. And you can see that he made a good throw at first base, and the throw got him. Nice play there by Derek Jeter.
Now Mark Newfield, he flied out to right his first time. Rabu with a couple of breaking balls, and he threw another one there. 0-1 the count to Newfield. Well, Joe, we had a ball game a couple of weeks ago on the 4th of July. You were on vacation.
Yes.
Reggie Jackson worked with me, and we saw Randy Johnson. And he didn't have his big exploding fastball either. He was throwing the ball around between 88 and 92 miles an hour most of the night. But Randy seemed to get the ball right where he wanted it, and he beat him anyway.
Well, if there's one thing that Rabu, you know, how he differs so much from Randy Johnson is his motion, you know, it's pretty standard. I mean, you can see the ball. Randy, you know, gives you a little arm, little shoulders, a little, you know, he's a little more herky-jerky. The Rabu is pretty true. If you just watch him, you know where the ball's coming from every pitch.
Well, he's made some real tough pitches in this inning, and he strikes out Newfield. That is his first strikeout.
Well, he's thrown a lot of breaking balls this inning, and there's another one, and you can see that, again, he knows how to pitch. He knows how to pitch when he doesn't have his best stuff. I think he got so upset on that one pitch that it really cost him the 2-run homer. He was so upset that he didn't get Cirillo out with 2 outs, and he cost himself.
Mike Matheny, and ball 1. Matheny singled in the 3rd, starting the 4-run Milwaukee rally. Irabu 1 ball, 1 strike. You were talking, Joe, about communicating. David Cohn said that after his first start against Detroit, he asked him about the umpires. And that Irabu told him, he said, well, first 3 innings, good, wide. After the first 3 innings, not so good, not so wide. Top fly. Pat Kelly. And it's a 3 up and 3 down inning, the first for Irabu tonight. We head to the 5th inning. Chad Curtis coming up. Yanks are trailing 4-2 to the Brewers. Brewers 4, Yankees 2 from Milwaukee as we go to the top of the 5th inning from County Stadium. Coming up on Outside the Lines Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. A look at the Latin American baseball players in the major leagues. The problems of the cultural adjustment, which is great. And what about those who don't make it? The story of the Dominican community of ex-minor leaguers who live in Spanish Harlem in New York City. And a look at the life and times of Roberto Clemente. That's coming up on Outside the Lines Tuesday at 7:30. 4:30 Pacific. And that one sounds like must viewing right here on ESPN. And that's a great show, and they do actual journalism on sports television, Joe.
Well, anything that includes something about Clemente has to be great. That adds to it right there. Willie Mays says he's the greatest player he ever saw, excluding himself, of course. I said exclude yourself, Willie, you know.
Roberto Clemente. Chad Curtis, the hitter, taking ball 1 from that man, Scott Carl. 4-2. Carl and the Brewers are leading. And the breaking ball down and in. 2 balls and no strikes. And certainly, we're here talking about Irabu and the adjustments that he's having to make, the cultural problems, the language problems, and, of course, on every team in baseball, those problems already exist with players that come in from Latin America, out of their own countries, away from their families, with a strange language. And the left fielder of Houston cannot get it. Curtis will go to second as Williams backs up the play. Houston, keep in mind, normally a middle infielder. A double for Curtis.
Well, this is when you have a 2-run lead, usually in a situation like this, unless you're sure you can catch it, you go ahead and let it become a single, stay up on your feet, hold it to a single, and you keep the double play in order. But, you know, infielders think they can catch everything anyway.
Well, he's a little upset with himself out there. Mark Whitten, the hitter. Jeff Cirillo in foul territory, fielding that one. No play, foul ball. Cirillo showing a pretty good arm on that throw, though. There's the scenic view here in this old ballpark. You know, back in the 50s when the Braves moved here from Boston. I mean, this was the model franchise in baseball in the 50s. This was a hot ticket. They were the best drawing team in the majors. And what great ball clubs they had, Joe. Spahn and Lou Burdette, and great hitters. Aaron, Matthews, Joe Adcock. Bina taking the pickoff throw.
And one of my favorites, Wes Covington.
Wes Covington. And Lou Burdette, 1957, put on one of the great solo performances in World Series history. He beat the Yankees 3 times. They just could not hit it. And many think Lou Burdette should be in the Hall of Fame. He's not there.
You can see that Matheny was crossed up there by Carl, and that's why he's going out to talk to him. He had called something else, and Carl looked like he threw a fastball. And he was expecting another pitch. Watch the catcher. You'll see how he catches his pitch. See, he was not prepared for that pitch. He was looking for something to go inside. Watch, he thinks it's going to break in, and it's a fastball. He thought it was going to be a breaking ball. So he goes out to make sure they get the signs correct. You change signs a lot of times with a run on second, of course.
1-1 the count. One and 2 the count to Mark Whitten. Joe Girardi is on deck. Yankees came in here Friday and were beaten by the Brewers 6-4. David Wells pitched a shutout for the Yankees yesterday. That changeup way outside. Again, he's got that real slow changeup, Joe. I don't know, there's another pitcher in the major has a changeup that slow compared to his fastball.
Tim Wakefield. Every once in a while, he'll throw that knuckleball about 60 miles an hour or whatever. And his fastball is about 65.
2-2 the count. Tim Wakefield pitched a shutout.
It's great. It's great.
Yesterday or did he Friday? Fastball. A little bit low. 3-2 now to Whitten. Mark Whitten, a man who once hit 4 homers and had 12 RBIs in the same game when he was with the St. Louis Cardinals. There's Joe Girardi on deck. But Whitten has struggled with the Yankees this year. You know, he went, where was it? The tail end of the season. Strike 3 call. He got him looking.
Well, he threw him a couple of fastballs away. Now here's a fastball on the inside part of the plate, and he can't pull the trigger. He looked like he was looking for something out over the plate, and this is a fastball on the inside part of the plate, and he just freezes up on it.
Chad Curtis still at second, and now Joe Girardi as Whitten goes to find a seat, and that changeup misses badly, ball 1. We're talking about Mark Whitten. Last year he was with Philadelphia, then he went to Atlanta and finished the year in Seattle, and in 40 games with the Mariners hit 300 and had 12 home runs. And the Yankees were hoping that he'd be able to feature some of that with them this year, but it has not happened. In the dirt.
Well, if you talk to Mark Whitten, he would tell you that he has not had an opportunity to play like on a continuous level like he had in Seattle and the other places. So he will say that, you know, he has not had enough at-bats to get in the groove. And that's probably part of the story. You know, the Yankees have used a lot of different players. They had Strawberry starting the season in left field. They had Tim Raines. They've had a lot of people play. So he has not played, you know, consistently, you know, every day.
2-0 the count. And 2-1. Hideki Irabu, our big story tonight. He got touched up with a 4-run 3rd inning, including a 2-run homer by Dave Nilsson. 2 Brewers big hitters came up with chances to do damage, did damage. Cirillo got a 2-run single, and then Nilsson a 2-run homer. Wow. He had Curtis dead, but nobody went over to cover.
Well, I'd like to see it again because I'm not so sure he didn't balk. Well, let's take a look at him. Now, see, to me, he made a movement toward the plate with that front knee and then just whirled all the way around. You can't make a movement toward the plate and then go back to second base.
So in other words, the move he just made, now that's the proper move.
Yeah, a lot of guys, you know, they take it, you know, obviously you can whirl around and go to second base without throwing, but you can't make a move toward the plate, then whirl. I think his front knee started toward the plate on the pitch before.
I thought I detected an intent to deceive the runner there, Joe.
Right.
Right center field. Nice catch by Jeremy Burnett. That was going to be an extra base hit and an RBI for Girardi, but Burnett was a pretty good player, Joe. I mean, he's not well known around the country. Runs well, got some power, getting a chance to play here in Milwaukee.
Well, he got a great jump on this ball, plus the right-hander hit it, so it curved back towards him a little bit, and he was able to get there and make the catch. When a right-hander hits the ball in the right center field like that, it curves back toward the right field line. And the same thing if a left-hander hits it to left center field, it'll curve back toward the left field line. It curves back towards the fielder.
Oh, that's just because you have such a big slice and you golf.
You're right about that.
My partner, Joe Morgan, believe him when he talks about that because he's an expert on the slice. Here's Derek Jeter, and he fouls one back and out of play. Jeter has grounded a short, and he is single. Now, the Yanks got a leadoff double in this inning and have not been able to manufacture the run. Whitten was unable to do anything. He ended up being called out on strikes. Girardi gets robbed, although Had Curtis gotten to third base, Girardi's ball still would have gotten him a run. Now they need the big 2-out hit. So Carl gets out of a tight spot here in the 5th inning. Top of the order for the Brewers. Vigna, Houston, and Cirillo coming up. 4-2, Milwaukee.
When Cooper Tarr asked me to be their spokesman, I wanted to make
in any language. And Hideki Irabu to face the top of the order now. And he struggled against these hitters the last time around. Vigna, big curve, too high. Vigna showing bunt. Vigna ripped a double down the right field line to really fuel that 4-run rally for the Brewers. He is 1 for 2. Charlie Hayes shallow at third. Vigna, pretty good bunter. Chad Kelly. And there's one away.
John, there's another great thing that Irabu does, and that is the plane of his release point. He starts his fastball and that splitter on the exact same plane. By that, I mean it looks like every pitch is a fastball, but it's actually a splitter. And that's why you see them swinging at that splitter even when it's going out in, out of the strike zone. It's simply because it comes on the same plane as the fastball, and you can't tell it's not a fastball until it's right on top of you.
And when we see breaking balls, I mean, he's sort of both a curveball and a slider. That's a strike to Jeff Houston. He is singled, and he is popped to third. 1 for 2. 4-2, Milwaukee is leading. Broken bat, and he'll have to go back and get a new one here. 0-2 the count to Houston.
John, one of the points that I want to make about him missing spring training is that when you pitch in spring training, you can make mistakes that will not hurt you and, cost you a ball game, and you can learn from those mistakes. He makes a mistake with a pitch, and, and he can come back to the dugout. They can talk to him about it. Well, you made this pitch in that situation. Don't make that mistake again. But when you make those mistakes now without having spring training, he's still learning to pitch to major league hitters. So when he makes that mistake, it does hurt him.
Chad Kelly throws out Houston. So 2 men are gone.
John, I think the difference in this ball game is really his temper. I mean, you see he's very upset right there when he gave up the base hit to Cirillo. He's still upset when he pitches to Dave Nilsson. And as I said before, it either fuels you to go forward or you can make mistakes. And he made another mistake because he was still upset. And that's the difference in the ball game right now, that 2-run homer by Dave Nilsson.
There's Nilsson. He would be next. He's on deck as Jeff Cirillo comes up to bat. And, of course, the other part of it, Joe, as you pointed out at the time, I mean, he's got a good fastball, but not a great fastball tonight. And he had Cirillo set up for the strikeout. He'd thrown him a curveball and 3 splitters, had 2 strikes on it, and threw the high, hard one for the strikeout, but it wasn't 97 miles an hour. It was 91 or 92, and Cirillo got a piece of it, fouling it back. And then, still alive, he promptly singled to center for 2 runs. That's a nice-looking curveball there.
Everything he throws actually starts on the same plane, John. Normally, a guy that throws a curveball, it has a hump in it, so it will kind of slip out of his hand. See, everything there starts on the same plane. See that tight rotation? That tells you that is a great curveball when it's that tight, because you really can't see the hole in it on the side.
Just off the outside with a fastball.
So if everything starts on the same plane, everything looks like a fastball when he released it. Some pitchers who have great curveballs, when they release it, the ball seems to come up out of their hand, so you recognize it as a curveball right away. But if it starts on the same plane as a fastball, you can't recognize it quickly.
Slider missing. 2-2 the count. Pitches thrown. 4 runs, 5 hits, and they scored all of those runs really all at once in the span of only 5 batters in the 3rd inning. A lot of movement on that pitch. 3-2 the count.
But you also have to be impressed with the fact that he's only walked 1 hitter. I mean, he does throw strikes. We'll see what this pitch was supposed to be. Well, that looks like a fastball. He was just trying to turn over a little bit.
I think he turned it over a lot. 3-2 to Cirillo. Came in there again with a fastball. Cirillo fought it off. 3-2. Well, you know, Joe, all the things you're pointing out about Irabu, and he's got a lot of things that Nomo doesn't have.
Right.
I mean, Nomo's got that fastball, and he's got the splitter.
Right.
They'd like him to throw a slow curve or maybe a changeup, something to change the speed anyway.
Right.
And Nomo doesn't feel comfortable yet with that. This guy's got a full arsenal of pitches. And it's foul tipped, and Girardi can't hold it.
And, John, what you just pointed out is, I think, is the reason that Nomo's earned run average has gone up each and every year from 2.54 to its highest now at 3.83. I think in Irabu's case, you'll see it go just the opposite. He may start high, but it'll continue to go down. You see Girardi almost able to hang on to it, but last second falls out of his glove.
2 down, nobody on. 3-2 the count. And he lost it. And he'll have to face Nielsen again.
Well, that was an attempt to throw a 3-2 breaking ball.
I don't know, Joe. You got Nielsen coming up. Left-handed hitter with power. I don't know if I like that call there much.
No, I think you had to, like you say, make Cirillo swing the bat in that case, especially when he has been struggling a little bit.
Of course, now, if he'd snapped off a great curve and struck him out, I would have loved the call.
Well, Joe Torre probably would have been.
Yeah. We all would have said, what a great call. But I'm a bottom line man, Joe. I like to wait and see how it turns out, then I decide. 1 ball and no strikes to Dave Nielsen. He hit a home run his last time. Irabu coming from a country that is just wild about baseball. I mean, baseball is huge in Japan. Base hit down the right field line. Into the corner. Cirillo heading home. He will score. Tino Martinez is arguing that a fan interfered with that ball. A double for Nielsen. 5-2, Milwaukee.
Well, a fan tried to interfere with it, but I don't think he touched it. He reached out to try to grab it. But now you look back, and that 3-2 pitch to Cirillo definitely was not a good pitch because it cost him a run. This ball is not hit that hard, but it's down, and he pulls it into the corner. We'll take a look. You see the fans looking over down their line. They try to reach for it, but you can't tell from that view, but it doesn't look like they touched it.
We saw immediately Tino Martinez was lobbying for a fan interference call. Maybe he was lobbying just because he thought, uh-oh, the run's going to score in this one. Maybe if they call fan interference, they'll make him go back to third. Jeremy Burnett's the hitter.
Good try by Tino. Yeah.
Good thinking.
Yeah.
And then again, maybe he really thought a fan did touch it. The umpire is not obligated, though, if he rules fan interference, to make the runner from first base stop at third. Fan interference means the umpire tries to determine what would have happened if the fan did not interfere with the ball. So, 1 strike to count. Change up misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. Burnett has twice hit the ball to right field. It is 0 for 2. Flying to right and flying to right. 5-2 now, Milwaukee, and Dave Nielsen, the man from Australia, is doing the biggest damage here to the right-hander from Japan, Irabu. And that's 2-1 here. Seems to be not a bad idea to pitch around this guy, Joe, at first base open. He's pretty dangerous right now. He's been hot lately. Although the man on deck is a pretty tough hitter, too, a switch hitter, Jose Valentin. 5-2 Milwaukee in the 5th inning. 3-0. 4-0. Now,
it should be 3 balls and 1 strike, John. See, the first, that's why I was surprised. It should be 3-1, not ball 4.
Well, Burnett is wondering what the strike was. He missed that one. But they're sending him back to the plate. So he has not walked just yet.
The first pitch was a curveball for a strike. The very first pitch.
Well, I think the scoreboard here at County Stadium missed that. And so did Burnett. He thought the scoreboard had it right now it does have it right. 3-1.
He was saying the first pitch was low, but home plate umpire called it a strike. The first pitch was a good overhand curveball. In fact, you commented on how good a curveball it was.
Yes, I did. Rabu waiting for Burnett to get back in there. Dave Nelson on the big stage tonight. He made a lot of fans happy down in Brisbane, Australia, and a lot of fans unhappy in Japan. Those rooting for Irabu. Of course, he's coming. Now, that is ball 4. Or maybe ball 5. It's enough to finally get a walk, we know that. And there's the Yankees Australian. Graham Lloyd up in the bullpen. Mel Stottlemyre and Joe Torre looking on, and their new pitcher, their new acquisition, is struggling for the second game in a row. 2 walks in the inning. 1 walk has become a run. 3 walks in the game by Irabu. Trying to get out of this 5th inning. He got the first 2 hitters, but then walked Cirillo, throwing a 3-2 curveball and missing with it. Then Nilsson doubled Cirillo home. Now Burnett's his walk. And Girardi out to speak to Irabu.
Well, a lot of people are saying, well, maybe it's time to take him out. I just agree. I think Joe Torre is doing the right thing because he knows the more time he spends on the mound, the sooner he will get to the point where they want him to be.
Valentine. And there's the split-fingered pitch. Swung on and missed. It's 0-1. 2 men on, 2 men out. Nilsson at second base. Burnett's at first base. Valentine had a real kind of a breakthrough season last year for the Brewers. He had 24 homers and 95 RBIs a year ago. Those are Ripken-type power numbers for a shortstop. But he also stole 17 bases last year. That's a foul out of play. So quickly, Irabu is ahead of him. No balls and 2 strikes. A right-handed hitter on deck. Irabu trying to end this 5th inning. That is pulled foul. 0-2 the count. You got some of the old feeling here at County Stadium, Joe. A park that's been kind of empty for many games the last few years. The Yankees are in town. There's a little electricity here in the ballpark tonight. A lot of anti-Yankee sentiment that we're hearing echo through the ballpark right now. And he missed badly, tried to throw the curveball there. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Bill Garner. Garner's gotten credit here in Milwaukee for doing the most with what he's got. The Brewers always play real hard. They hustle. And that is out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Bill Garner's always one of my favorites, Joe, ever since the '74 playoffs. I was broadcasting in Oakland. They were playing Baltimore. And Garner had been in the ball club but wasn't eligible for the playoffs. He sat in the radio booth with me and told me all the signs. Made me sound like a genius. I'd just come on and say, I wouldn't be surprised if they hit and run right here. And they always did. Irabu gets out of the inning. Kelly throws out Valentine. The Brewers lead 5-2. But Pat Kelly, Paul O'Neill, and Tino Martinez, the power, coming up for the Yankees. Stay with us. At 87 Central and 5 Pacific, we'll be at Comiskey Park in Chicago. The big hurt, Frank Thomas. He went deep today in Baltimore. His 22nd home run of the year. Thomas is hitting .373, and he's got 84 4 RBIs. He and Albert Bell taking on Juan Gonzalez, last year's MVP, and the Western Division champion Rangers, 8 Eastern, 7 Pacific, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. We hope that you will join us. We may have some fireworks there. Gonzalez, Will Clark, Dean Palmer, Rusty Greer. A lot of firepower on those two ball clubs. Harold Baines also hit a home run today for the White Sox. They've got some great offensive talent. Pat Kelly trying to get it started with a nice play by Cirillo. Kelly 1 for 3 in the game against Scott Carl.
That's a nice play by Cirillo. Watch how he backs up to make sure he gets it on the big hop, but then it stayed down and he had to use his quick hands to stab it. But he makes the play at first.
Scott Carl, who got touched up early. The Yanks had 2 runs home after only 5 batters, but since then, just 2 more hits allowed. No runs, and he has a 3-run lead as Tino Martinez, or rather Paul O'Neill, lifts one foul. Tino Martinez on deck. O'Neill doubled home Kelly with the first run in that first inning, but then he hit into a double play to end the third. 5-2 Milwaukee in the 6th. That's a strike. Well, this would be big for Carl. I mean, this guy was 2-10 going into his last start. Last Tuesday, he beat Kansas City. And now he's trying to win 2 in a row. I mean, you got to start somewhere when you're 2-10. 1 ball and 2 strikes. The Yankees, I mean, historically, conventional wisdom has always been load up your left-handers against the Yankees, particularly at Yankee Stadium. They've always got some good left-handed power, and this year no different. There are only 2 games over 500 and games started against them by left-handers. Up and in, 2-2, and against right-handers, they've had an excellent record. So the historic wisdom is still probably the smart play against New York. Or your lefties if you got him.
Bernie Williams is such a tough hitter from the right side, you know, especially. That, I mean, they've missed him a lot this season because he's been on disabled list a couple of times. So, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, Bernie's got Mark McGwire type power from the right side. I think a tremendous home run ratio as a right-handed batter. Bernie's only been in 75 games. He'll be out by his own reckoning another week or so. 3-2 the count to Paul O'Neill. Up the middle. Base hit. Past the diving Viñas. Tino Martinez comes up with a chance to do some serious damage here.
Well, Tino is now 0 for, what is he, 0 for 15 against Carl.
Now, he's done things this year that he's never done before. Right? He's never hit this many home runs in a full season before, much less 95 games. I remember Tony Kubek, who hit second in the Yankees batting order in that fabled 61 season. Roger Maris hit 61 homers for the Yankees. Change-up missing. And he said that one day he had apparently gone into a different spot in the left-handed batter's box. He was a left-handed hitter like Maris. And after the at-bat, Maris came up and says, "Why did you change your spot in the batter's box?" He says, I didn't know that I had. He says, "No, I've been standing in your footprints in the batter's box all year, and today you changed it. It threw me off a little bit." In other words, Maris was in such a groove that he noticed little small things like that. Everything was in such great sync, and I imagine something similar must be happening for Tino Martinez to get in this kind of a groove. Now, Maris, in his 96th game, and this is the 96th for Tino tonight, hit 2 homers to give him 40 after 96 games. So Tino and the rest of the group is starting to fall significantly behind Maris's pace from 61. 2-1.
And again, I go back to what I said. He just doesn't seem like he picks the ball up as quickly as he'd like off a call. And I remember one of the great hitters, Billy Goodman, who was one of my managers my first year in the minor leagues, and he won a batting championship in Boston. He said, when you're not hitting a guy well, move up, move back, move around in the batter's box.
O'Neill at first, 1 out. Waiting for it is Burnett. Out number 2. Well, Scott Carl has just been the guy that Chino has not been able to figure out. 0 for 16 now. 0 for 3 tonight. Here is Charlie Hayes. There's some bullpen activity going for Milwaukee as we play the 6th inning.
And, John, just to finish that, when you move up or back in the batter's box, actually changes the angle at which you see the ball from the pitcher. So that's the point of doing it, is you see setters warming up in the bullpen.
Charlie Hayes singled home run his first time, fly deep to right his second. It's ball 1 from Carl. Well, we haven't seen Carl this year until tonight. But he started off so poorly. Now he looks like a guy who's real confident.
Well, we talked about that in the first inning. If he could get out of the first inning, you know, to regroup, you know, he'd have a good chance of pitching a good ball game. He's done that so far.
Ball on the strike to Hayes. He's talking to Larry McCoy about that call.
From a hitter's perspective, that 1 ball, no strike pitch is always an important pitch. Because if it's called a ball now, it's 2-0, and you have the pitcher in the hole. You have what the hitters like to call a cripple coming, because you know exactly what's coming, and you know he's going to try to throw a strike with it.
2-1.
2-0, 3-1, those are great hitters count. And so when it's 1 ball, no strike, obviously that pitch is very important to you as a hitter. That's why you saw Hayes upset. A lot of times we say, well, why was he upset? That was just the first strike call. Well, he's upset because it changes the at-bat. It changes the pitcher's philosophy out there on the mound.
Harold Williams, that ends the inning. Nelson with 3 RBIs. Carl taking care of the pitching. 5-2 Milwaukee. Here in the concession stands in Milwaukee. Kentucky Arabo T-shirts already out there, Joe. But we haven't seen that great fire yet from Arabo.
Well, maybe I have to get me one of those.
You'd look good in one. I'd like to see you wearing one of those out in the golf course. Irabu, 5 innings and only 1 strikeout. Gerald Williams, ball 1 outside. Williams is flying to center. And it's grounded to short. Thrown out on a great play by Derek Jeter. Pretty good crowd here at County Stadium, Milwaukee. 29,333. The paid crowd. There's 38,000 here last night. And the slider swung on a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike. But last night, the Yanks won 8-0. It was a dismal outing for the Brewers. Well, you see the crowd here at County Stadium. I believe this was the ballpark, Joe, where Stan Musial once hit a game-winning home run in the All-Star game. I was too young to remember it, but
I would take a look at this pitch. He just doesn't release the ball properly. He lets it go too high, and maybe, you know, and he may be starting to tire a little bit because he didn't bend on that pitch. Bends very well on that one, so bends his back. Sorry.
3-1 the count. That's going to be trouble if it's fair. Fair ball. Williams has great speed. O'Neill, though, has no problems digging it out. Stand-up double for the former Yankee, Gerald Williams.
Now, that was not a bad pitch by Irabu. The ball was down, but Williams seemed to be going that way all the way. Now, watch where this pitch is. See the target Girardi gives. Let's see how close this ball comes to it. I mean, right there. That ball is down and away. I mean, just you have to give the hitter credit every once in a while. He just went down and got that ball and hit it down the right field line for a base hit. That's just good hitting. If he tried to pull that ball, he'd hit a little weak ground ball at shortstop. So, not a bad pitch by Irabu, just good hitting there.
Graham Lloyd right alongside Tony Cloninger, former Major League pitcher, now the bullpen coach for the Yankees. Newfield. 0-1 the count. Newfield is flied to right and struck out. 5-2. The Brewers already leading. They get a leadoff double here from Gerald Williams. The 3 hitters due up in this inning, all right-handed at the bottom of the Brewers batting order. Strike call to the inside. 0-2 the count. Then when you get to the top of the order, the lefties start coming up again. I'm sure Torrey was hopeful that Irabu would have an easy inning with these 3 righties.
Well, he better start checking Gerald Williams at second base because he was trying to get a good jump.
Good pitch. Strike 3 call, and Newfield didn't like the call.
Well, I mean, those were those last 2 were 2 of the best fastballs he's thrown in this ball game. It seemed like he just reached back, got a little bit more on the last 2 pitches. I mean, look at this fastball. That's an exploding fastball right there. And the pitch before was the same thing. I mean, I don't know if he released it any different, but those 2 pitches had a little more on them than some of the other fastballs we've seen.
And another good live fastball moving in on Matheny.
Well, it seems like he's, said, well, this may be my last inning. These may be my last hitters. I'm going to reach back and get a little extra.
Matheny singled in the 3rd, starting a 4-run rally. He popped to second in the 4th. 1 ball, 1 strike.
See, that's the beauty of that splitter that he throws. It just started on the same plane as the fastball. You could just see, I mean, it looks just like a fastball.
To 2 Milwaukee. Williams away from second, 1 out. There he goes. Girardi never releases the ball.
Well, I could see it all the time. He was trying to get a big jump at second base, and Irabu was taking 1 look and going to the plate. And just watch, he takes 1 look at him. When he looks away, he just goes, and so does Williams. And that's a smart base runner. And he was trying to do that earlier in the count. And Irabu didn't check him. Again, that's, in my opinion, that's some communication gap that we see right there.
The infield comes in, and the squeeze is on, and it works. 6-2 Milwaukee. Right away, Williams broke for the plate, and Matheny got the bunt down. The Brewers steal a run. 6-2 Milwaukee.
This is what we were talking about in open. Would he be able to keep runners from stealing bases? And this is the perfect, squeeze situation if that's what you want to do in this game. I mean, he's going to try to throw a strike. He throws a strike. Everyone does their job. The runner, Williams, didn't start until Irabu started to the plate. And Matheny did not square around until the ball was on its way.
Not the easiest pitch in the world to bunt. I mean, that pitch was up.
High fastball.
He got it down on the ground. Mike Matheny, a sacrifice bunt and an RBI on the suicide squeeze. 6-2 now. Well, I guess if there's a time to do it, Joe, and you got your 9th place hitter up there, that's it. 9th place hitter, right-handed hitter, hitting .240. A little bit of insurance. They put 6 runs on the board against Irabu. This is the 6th inning. The curveball, nice in there for a strike. In his previous start against Cleveland, Irabu went 5 innings, gave up 5 runs. Although only 1 run until the 5th, then he gave up a couple of home runs. Marquise Grissom hit a shot against him, and then Matt Williams a 3-run homer. Well, what was that, Joe?
I don't speak Japanese. Well, we'll take a look at it. Well, let's face it, John. He does have a little tipper, and he tipped his hat afterwards as if to say it was an accident, but
Battling the lights in left field, but making the catch is Mark Whitten, and that's the inning. The Brewers add another 6-2 against Irabu. We head to the 7th. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by the Home Depot, where low prices are just the beginning. 6-2 for the Brewers. There's the look at County Stadium from the Miller Eagles flying overhead. We're glad to have them with us tonight and giving us some great views of this old ballpark, which has been the scene of a lot of excitement over the years, Joe, from the days of Aaron and Matthews and the slugging Braves to the true blue crew of Harvey Keene with Cecil Cooper and Molitor and Yount, Gorman Thomas, Ben Ogilvy. Those were some explosive, great, entertaining ball clubs here at County Stadium. And tonight, a little feel of the old days with the big crowd on hand and the Brewers playing well and creating a little electricity here with the Yankees, Joe. They had the squeeze against Irabu, and then a little bit later, we saw one that was extraordinarily wild, but didn't exactly look like maybe it just kind of slipped out of his hand. Right. 1 ball, 1 strike to Mariano Duncan. That's a foul.
Well, let's take a look at this. I mean, he's shown that he has a temper, and I mean, if you watch his wrist snap, you know, you see this ball doesn't slip out of his hand. Watch his wrist snap right there. I mean, and maybe just letting him know he didn't appreciate the squeeze, but you see right there his wrist snaps down. That ball did not slip out of his hand. And obviously he threw it wide enough he wasn't trying to hit anyone or hurt anyone. But, you know, maybe he wants them to know I'm still out there. And he didn't like the fact that they did pull the squeeze. They stole the base and then had a squeeze on the next pitch.
Duncan is down on strikes, and there's out number 1. And here's Bill Pito with an update.
John, as you mentioned earlier, Texas will be on ESPN XM tonight. Texas and Detroit, bottom of the 4th, lead Stevens. Down the line, Gonzalez and Clark come in to score, and at this point, Texas is down 5-2. Detroit adds a run to go up 6-2, but in the 7th, here comes Texas again. Mark McLemore drives in Domingo Cedeno. Texas now down 6-4, still batting the bottom of the 7th.
All right, Bill, thank you. And strike 1 to Chad Curtis, who has fouled the first and doubled. 6-2 for Milwaukee in the 7th inning. You know, Joe, you're talking about Irabu and the fact that he didn't seem to be very happy and threw that pitch almost as if to sort of demonstrate his unhappiness. Right. That the Brewers play there. Even the way he fielded the bunt. Right. I mean, it looked like the anger was already there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when he fielded, he was upset. You know, they stole the base, and the next pitch they, you know, put a suicide squeeze on. And look, I don't have a problem with what he did, personally, because he didn't throw at anyone. He threw it high, wide, and, you know, away from the hitter. But I think sometimes, you know, you say, hey, I'm still out here, and maybe I don't appreciate it. I'll put it this way. I've seen some of the pitchers, if you squeeze like that, they would not be that wide. The next pitch would be under somebody's chin.
Well, they said that in one of the publicity hypes about him that he was the Japanese Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan.
Hey,
for instance.
Thank you.
He had a way of telling you when he wasn't happy.
You're exactly right. But the great pitchers do.
Chad Curtis chased the pitch up around his eyes that time. And Valentin makes the catch. Out number 2. Here's the play we're talking about. This was the squeeze. Watch Irabu here.
Yeah, now watch him. We're not going to see his expression. See how he goes after the ball? He's not real happy right there. I mean, see how he just kind of flipped it over there? Yeah. And he says something, you know. And that's good. Hey, man, I mean, I like to see a guy have a little
fire.
Yeah, some fire.
Mark Whitney with the top fly caught by Gerald Williams. The Yankees are down in order. Carl is on a roll. Houston, then Cirillo, and Nilsson. He's having a big night. Stay with us.
Out the side here in the 2nd. Then at the plate, Chan-Ho Park would come up in the 4th inning. The game is tied at 2. Chan-Ho Park up the middle. Andrew Jones overruns it. 2 runs come in. Dodgers win 8-3. Parks won his last 3 starts.
All right, Bill, thank you. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan. We've been watching Hideki Irabu here. And Irabu, there's been some things that you've been impressed with, Joe,
yes.
others that you haven't been. And he does something also that's kind of interesting, which we can't actually see. Where's the long sleeve shirt? Because he's got magnets attached to him.
Right, he's got a lot of different magnets taped on his arm and his back and different parts of his body.
First ball swinging against Irabu. Jeff Houston, and he is quickly retired, and 1 for 4 for the game. So one man gone.
And those magnets are supposed to promote healing and, you know, bring more oxygen, you know, to different parts of his body, and it's supposed to help. And actually, I wear magnets on my knees now, trying to get back on the golf course. And truthfully, they seem to help me as well. So I don't know what the scientific or medical terms are, but
so this is not like a religious thing.
No. I'm wearing them because I think they help my knees.
You and Irabu are not in some kind of a cult.
No.
Oh, okay. It's like a medical thing.
Yeah.
All right. Here's Jeff Cirillo. Cirillo and Nilsson. The two Brewer veterans who have been big hitters. The Brewers have had to do without John Jaha this year. He had 34 homers last year. Was off to a fine start again this year. Then he got hurt and is out for the rest of the season. But tonight, Cirillo and Nilsson have both performed admirably here on the big stage of Sunday Night Baseball, Joe. You got to hand it to him because not many people know about these Milwaukee players. I mean, Nilsson, this guy, has a chance to be a big star in this league, as does Cirillo. And tonight, they're both looking like stars.
I really think the key has been, obviously, Nilsson hitting, you know, the home run, the 2-run homer, and driving in the run. Cirillo, of course, drove in a couple of runs that started his downfall. But I really believe that he didn't really know how to pitch Nilsson. I don't think he has a pattern with Nilsson yet. I think he knows how he wants to pitch Cirillo.
Along the left field line, Jeter out, Whitten in, Whitten. And that's the second out. Cirillo now 1 for 3. Remember, he got a big single, a 2-run single in the third, when it looked for a moment like Irabu had him all set up for the strikeout, but he was able to foul back the fastball to stay alive, and then got the 2-run single, and that really kind of turned the whole thing around. They scored 4 runs in the inning after that.
See, I think Joe Torre feels like I do. He doesn't have a game plan for Nilsson, so he's not going to let him pitch to him again.
And Irabu departs as Graham Lloyd from Australia comes on to replace him. Geelong, Victoria, Australia. Graham Lloyd, the former Brewer, to face the pride of Brisbane, Australia, Dave Nilsson, a current Brewer. And there is ball 1.
John, I must admit, I'm a little surprised that Joe took him out at this particular point because he had gotten the first 2 hitters out this inning. And if he could have, very easily, and if he could have gotten Nilsson out, to finish, on a good note, for his next start, and then take him out, at the beginning of next inning. I thought that's what he was going to do, so I was a little surprised when he came out to get him after he got the first 2 out so quickly.
Because I thought he might just take him out after the 6th.
Yeah, I did too, but when you let him come back, and then obviously Joe knows his people better than I do. I'm just, a point from my viewing perspective here that, if he could have gone 1, 2, 3, he would have had something to build on, I guess, next time. But when you're Joe Torre, you're trying to catch the Baltimore Orioles. That's your #1 concern right now.
6-2 is the score. The Brewers leading. Irabu went 6 2/3 innings, charged with 6 runs and 7 hits. And you see at the moment, the Yanks are 3 back of Baltimore. If they can win this game, they'd be 2.5 back. They got 1 more to play here in Milwaukee tomorrow night before they go home. But that's the inning. Lloyd retires Nilsson, who had a homer and a double and 3 RBIs earlier. Yanks coming up, trailing 6-2. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by Rogaine, medically proven to regrow hair for men and women. And by Team Cheerios, the taste teams love. Sunday Night Baseball, I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan. Our 8th year of Sunday Night Baseball. Glad to have you with us. 6-2, the Brewers leading the Yankees as we head to the 8th inning. I'm not sure This was the script that many thought would be written tonight. Irabu gets knocked around, and Scott Carl, 3 wins and 10 losses for the year, is on a roll. But there it is. There are the numbers. Carl gave up 2 runs for the first 5 batters he faced, and none at all since then. And this is more like the way Carl pitched much of the time last year. He was a 13-game winner last year, and they thought they had themselves a rising star. And the Brewers thought that they had themselves also a rotation to reckon with. Guys like Carl, the young D'Amico, Cal Eldred back and healthy, Ben McDonald. 1 pitch, Girardi is gone. Thrown out by Valentin. Girardi 0 for 2 with a walk. And to the top of the order we go. Good crowd out there in the bleachers tonight. And when we got to the ballpark before the game, Joe, the parking lot was filled with tailgaters. They had the barbecues going out there. And I saw at least 25 different tailgaters invite you over. And you could have had potato salad, Joe, for the next 6 months. And brats.
Yeah.
Oh, you think they were barbecuing some brats out there, do you?
I'm not a big potato salad man.
Cirillo throws out Jeter. Man, 2 pitches here in the inning and 2 outs for Carl.
John, I want to take a quick moment. I read last week where Lee Smith, the all-time saves leader, retired, you know, from the Montreal Expos, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, the one thing I remember about Lee Smith is that he always took the ball no matter what the situation. He didn't always have to get a save. He was always, you know, there for the team, and I always liked that. He always had a great attitude, and I wish him well in his retirement.
Lee Arthur Smith, been around for a long, long while. More saves than any closer in the history of Major League Baseball.
478.
And he had a long stretch of years where he had 30 or more every year. I mean, he was not just good, but he was consistently good.
He was one of those gentle giant kind of guys. Big Lee Smith on the mound, but I don't ever remember him throwing at hitters. I don't remember him knocking a lot of guys down, but I know a lot of them were scared of him.
Yeah. And he was an imposing presence out there, that's for sure. He used to throw 98, 99 miles an hour. But he also made a change in his career. That's a base hit for Pat Kelly. And it keeps the inning going for the Yankees and brings up Paul O'Neill.
Yeah, he went from overpowering to being a pitcher, hitting spots, changing speed.
And boy, did he hit the spots. I mean, the last 3 or 4 years of his career, he almost never walked anybody, came in. He was like Eggersley.
Yeah.
Hit his spots. He picked up a split-fingered pitch to go with a slider and that fastball.
But I remember him being just a good guy, I think, for the team, and I think that's important to me.
So back home to Louisiana. The Arthur Smith. I hope he's looking in tonight. That was a nice thought there, Joe. Glad you brought it up. And there's ball 1 outside to Paul O'Neill. O'Neill doubled home a run in the first inning as the 3rd batter of the game. He's hit into a double play since then, and he is single. 2 for 3. 6-2. The Brewers leading. Scott Carl pitching one of his best games of the whole season right here. That's too low. We mentioned Ben McDonald, the strong right-hander out of LSU. As you see O'Neill's great hitting streak in progress. McDonald placed on the disabled list. He's been out to California to have his shoulder examined, and they'll get the results of an MRI, I guess, tomorrow. They're afraid he might have some damage in that rotator cuff. I'll know more to the extent of that tomorrow, but in the meantime, he is on the disabled list. We in particular mention McDonald because his name is one that's come up in trade rumors because of a peculiarity in his contract. And you'll hear more on all of the sports news, baseball and otherwise, on SportsCenter right after the ball game. 3-0 O'Neill. Texas strike. Tino Martinez would be next. But Ben has a chance to declare himself a free agent at the end of this year and get a bonus besides from the Brewers. They could lose him and get nothing in return and have to pay him a lot of money besides. O'Neill lets the foul out of play. At any rate, this may, if the injury proves to be serious, Ben McDonald may be out for the year, but we'll know more tomorrow. The Brewers, third in the Central. Cleveland topped the division by 4.5 over the White Sox. The Brewers have been able to hang in there for a long while. But despite being the ball club that nobody figured to be in the class of those other two at all. Paul O'Neill with a new bat. Bill Garner, though, I mean, that's what he's got. The Brewers always seem to play better than what you think that they can play with the talent on hand. Sal Bando, the general manager, and Phil Garner, the manager, old teammates from the Oakland Athletics days back in the A's great years back in the 70s. 3-2, 2 down. Yankees like to see Tino Martinez take a swing in this inning with the men on. But O'Neill goes down on strikes. That's the inning. Scott Carl has shut down the Yanks for 8 innings. 6-2 Milwaukee. We go to the last of the 8th. The old and the new. County Stadium in the foreground and out beyond the pillars in the embryonic stages of new Miller Park, which will open in the year 2000, the future of Major League Baseball here in Milwaukee, a retractable dome stadium. Meanwhile, the future, at least for one night, looks great, or the present looks great, at least for one night, for the Brewers. Putting it to the Yankees, leading 6-2 in the last of the 8th. Strike one to Jeremy Burnett. Bill Garner wishes to be like this all the time. Well, that curveball just flew out of the hand of Graham Lloyd. And that was a little bit of a different kind of a pitch. The one we saw from Irabu earlier.
Well, let's take a look at it. You can see the difference. See how that ball slipped out. The other one had a little snap on it.
Curveball a little bit high.
Yeah.
1 ball, 1 strike. And that's going outside. 2-1 the count. I thought after that pitch that Burnett would switch around Joe and bat right-handed. I thought that's the way they do it now after seeing Larry Walker in the All-Star game.
I'd rather not discuss that.
Nice pitch by Graham Lloyd. It's interesting that Lloyd, when he got to the Yankees last year, all the controversy that Lloyd was damaged goods. Pat Listash, who was damaged goods, they eventually get another player instead of him. And all of the shouting and the gnashing of teeth. And then Lloyd ends up being a hero in the World Series for the Yanks. I mean, he was just a very important man in that Yankee bullpen. Down on strikes is Burnett. 1 man down right after the ball game. Stay tuned for Sports Center with Rich Eisen and Dan Patrick. The British Open will be discussed. Big football deal. And a conversation with Tino Martinez, the big home run slugger of the Yankees. And we'll be seeing him come up in the 9th inning as well on our telecast here. So stay tuned for Sports Center after the ball game. That is a ball outside to Jose Valentin. Valentin, after his 24-homer season of a year ago, has 8 home runs this year, but has also spent time with the disabled list. Some teams are able to handle injuries better than others. I mean, the Yankees are well fortified. They get a couple of big injuries. They have a lot of experienced players off the bench they can go to. Maybe more than any other team. 2-0 the count. That one is hit well into right center field. Curtis, nice catch. He ran it down. 2 down. Here's an update now from Texas with Bill Pito.
All right, John, Detroit once led the Rangers 5-0, but here, bottom 7, Rangers down 6-4. Gonzalez down the line. Mark McLemore comes in to score at 6-5. Pudge Rodriguez, the tying run. Here comes Pudge. Did he touch the plate or not? Pudge says, you know what? I did touch the plate. 4 for Texas in the 7th. Now tied at 6 in the 8th.
Yeah, it looked like he touched it to me. 2 down, and here is Gerald Williams.
John, I got one other quick note. Bob Howsam, the architect, one of the architects of the Big Red Machine in the 70s, he's recovering from eye surgery out in Colorado, and I just wanted to wish him well.
Bob Howsam, he was a guy, and not that many people realize this really about him, who almost brought Major League Baseball to Denver 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Of course.
And he was instrumental this time as well in getting it, finally helping to get baseball in Colorado.
Well, when it finally did happen, the way they've responded to baseball in Denver, baseball wishes it had gone there 40 years ago. Man.
Some of the hitters do, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see Larry Walker and Galarraga, and these guys, they're all fine major league hitters. And Walker, in particular, is having a great year on the road this year, not just at Denver. But one day, I'd like to see a Mark McGwire or one of these guys spend a year in Denver. I mean, a guy who's hit 50 homers at sea level, just to see what might happen.
All the pitchers in the National League are yelling at you right now. They all hate you for that. They would not like to see that, I'm sure.
Or Griffey, or Bonds, or one of them, Albert Bell, Frank. What about Frank Thomas if he went to Denver? I mean, we might go in there, Joe, and sit there and go, well, Frank got 70 homers again this year.
Well, next year, the home run derby will be held at Denver Stadium. I mean, we may not be finished by the time the All-Star game's supposed to start next year, but they will have a home run derby there next year for the All-Star game.
Doug Jones up in the bullpen. Gerald Williams goes down, swinging. 4 in a row retired by Lloyd. Tino Martinez got one last shot. Chasing Babe started for the first time this year. His longest outing of the year, an 8-inning victory in May against the Chicago White Sox. He won 4-1. But did not pitch the complete game. Tino Martinez to hit it. That is a strike. And here's Tino against a guy he's never had a hit against. Not tonight, not ever. 6-2, Milwaukee leading. That one a tough play at first. Nielsen stays with it, and Carl gets the foot out. Good play, Carl. Hideki Irabu tonight, Joe, and we came with high expectations.
Well, Dave Nielsen was not fooled by all the hype. He hits a 2-run homer in the 3rd, and in the 5th, he doubles in a run down the right field line, so he drove in 3 of the 6 runs off of Hideki Irabu.
Charlie Hayes, first ball swinging. Fernando Vina, out number 2.
John, I said I was going to reserve my opinion on Irabu until after I'd seen him pitch in person. Well, my opinion is that he's going to be a good pitcher. He is just not quite there yet. It's going to take him a little longer than maybe some people realized or thought it would, because he doesn't have the overpowering fastball to be able to dominate major league hitters. But he does have all the other pitches. He changes speeds, he moves the ball around well, and he has a presence out there on the mound.
Mariano Duncan, first ball swinging. He's got a base hit as the fans were standing and cheering, hoping that a win was imminent. Duncan gets his first hit of the game. Keeps the Yankees going for Chad Curtis. By the way, and you're talking about Irabu, and only time will tell. Earlier, we had a graphic showing that Nomo got beat up in his first 2 starts. Had a higher earned run average by more than a run than Irabu did. So he didn't, and he had a full spring training with the Dodgers. But the other thing is Dave Nilsson. Again, many people around the country not familiar with the Brewers aren't that familiar with Nilsson. This guy hit .331 last year. I mean, he is a quality big league hitter. And tonight, he was the man who had the big hits against Irabu. 2 down in the 9th inning. And it's like the old days here. I can almost see Robin Yount back out there at shortstop and Paul Molitor at second. Cecil Cooper, Gorman Thomas, the Brewers.
Saw Gorman Thomas outside tonight.
He's here tonight. He looks just like he looked when he played.
Norman.
He didn't look that good. 1 ball, 1 strike. Chad Curtis is fouled to first, doubled, and I say that with all due affection.
I mean, Gorman's a nice guy.
He played the game with a reckless abandon. He swung hard. He crashed into walls, going for fly balls. That is strike 2 call. Well, maybe for the Brewers and their fans, this weekend series is like their playoffs, because They don't look like they'll have enough to stay with the Indians and the White Sox. But like in the old days, in big ball games, the fans are standing. Scott Carl, 1 pitch away, 1 strike away from his first complete game victory of the year. And all the sweeter because it came against the Yankees. 6-2 Milwaukee in the ninth. 2 down, the man aboard. Strike 3 call. And on this night, they rock the old yards once again. Phil Garner's Brewers putting down the Yankees 6-2. Scott Carl with his second